Hello everybody. Thanks again for visiting my YouTube channel. This is the place where we discuss the Lord's Recovery Movement of Witness Lee, also known as the local church movement. Haven't made a video for a while. I wanted to make sure I had something I really wanted to say, and I do. But first, I've had some compliments on my voice. I just wanted to tell you I appreciate that, and also there's a trick to it. So if you want a good radio voice, you may not realize this, but the way to do it is to talk through your nose, believe it or not. You have to get the sound resonating in the upper part of your face, in your nose and in your cheekbones, just below your eyes. It's called the mask. A trick I learned to get there real quick is to go, mm-hmm, and really make it buzz up there, mm-hmm. And then you say, no, go, right, really. And then you're ready to talk. Some people talk way down in their throats, and they sing from their throats. Voice experts said that he has seen patients who have problems with their voice, singers, and he said he almost never sees a country western singer who has problems with their vocal cords, because country western singers sing up here in their nose, but some singers sing down from their throats and they put strain on their vocal cords that they don't need to do. It's like trying to play a trumpet without having the trumpet, just having the mouthpiece. The big part of the trumpet is the amplifier and the resonator. And in the same way, the mask, the upper part of our face, is the amplifier. It's not our vocal cords that make it loud. And so anyway, that's just a little tip that I thought I'd throw in. But what I wanted to talk to you about today was the idea of cultism, or the whole idea of cults. And I've come to the conclusion that cults and abusive groups, controlling groups, groups like the Lord's Recovery, and all these groups that try to control people's lives and use fear and dread and mental control and these kind of things to undermine the autonomy of the individual, they are all part of Satan's masterpiece. Let me just skip to the end of the story. When the Antichrist comes and gets a following, his following is going to be a cult. Now, I don't mean that he's going to have a religion overtly. What I mean is the people that follow him will be a group that majors in groupthink, that majors in the group over the individual. And there will be an attitude of pressuring people to conform to the thoughts of this man and the people that follow him. And there will be a lot of public shaming. There will be a lot of ridicule. There will be a certain amount of persecution, which will get worse and worse and worse and worse and culminate with the killing of religious people, especially Christians. But the whole thing is going to be a cult phenomenon. It's going to be a mindset of following this guy, of not questioning him, and of saying if you don't follow him and you do question him, you're a bad person. Now, this is precisely what we saw in the Lord's Recovery. This mob thinking, this group think, this hive think, where you're not going along with the group, brother or sister. You are a rebel. You are a problem. You think differently. Is there anything more insidious than that accusation, the way it's used by them? You're thinking differently. I mean, why don't you just say you're trying to control my mind, if you're going to say that, because that's what it comes down to. What I'm seeing is one reason possibly we were allowed to go through this experience was to prepare us and train us against this attitude of groupthink and mind control, which is coming upon the earth and which will result in the end of the world. The world is going to end with a cult following a man who claims to be infallible, who claims to know everything, and his followers will shame and persecute anyone that disagrees with him. Okay, that's where we're headed. So everyone who's experienced the Lord's Recovery or this kind of thing has a kind of training that other people don't have, and it has a kind of insight that other people don't have. And I believe possibly this is why the Lord allowed us to go through it. So there would be people on the earth who are equipped to see through this stuff and combat it. In general, cults are popping up all the time. People have to deal with this all the time. We don't realize it because they're largely hidden. The phenomenon's largely hidden because nobody wants to admit they're a cult, and somebody who's in a cult probably doesn't want to admit they were in one. So they just kind of go along with their life and they don't talk about it and they try to forget it. And that's what's happened to many Lord's Recovery people is they have just walked away and they haven't got involved in these forums or discussions or anything. They've just tried to leave it behind. But why did it happen? Why did God allow us to go through this? I believe because two reasons. It's a lot more widespread than we think. A lot of people go through it, and that God wants to train people to be aware of this phenomenon. A lot of people in the world don't even realize they're being manipulated now. And the stuff we're seeing now in culture, things like cancel culture and wokeism and public shaming for not believing what you're supposed to believe, and the way they put pressure on you to conform, and the lack of reason, the lack of real discussion, the insinuations, the pressure, all to what? To conform to something. One thing the COVID phenomenon has really brought out is how much this kind of thing exists in the world and how people can be manipulated with the media, manipulated by social pressure, by their own ignorance, by their own lack of doing homework. And if you look back at the Lord's Recovery, you see the same thing. How much did we really do our homework there? Well, we were even told not to. Don't be reading other stuff. If you do read other stuff, realize they're probably wrong. Witness Lee's right. And it's the same thing with the stuff with the COVID thing. If you read or say anything that contradicts what the powers that be said is the truth, it's misinformation. It's something that's been debunked. There have been so many things that they said were wrong at the beginning of this that have turned out to be right. And I don't want to get too much into politics, but the point is, this is what the world uses to control people. And in the end, Satan is going to use it with the Antichrist and the Antichrist's mob of like-minded thinkers to basically destroy the world. That's what's going to happen. Being social is normal. God wants us to be social. There's a reward in working with a team and with a group toward a good goal. That's normal. When it gets bad is where you start being controlled and you have to give up control of your life to some group and you get manipulated. I'm not a libertarian. I have some libertarian ideas, but libertarians basically believe everything's about the individual. The problem with that is then the question is, what's the point of society? And it becomes rather empty because the whole thing of working as a team gets lost when everything's about the individual. So there is a balance there. And the balance is you never enter into a relationship without having the power to leave that relationship and say, I've decided it's not working for me, I'm going to move on. And you never give up the autonomy over yourself and your decisions. You always maintain control. And I've said before that God's purpose is accomplished through voluntary relationships, not through one person saying you have to submit to me and do what I say, or one group saying that. That's cultism. So there's nothing wrong with being in a group or being committed to the group and serving the group and that kind of thing. The key to it is you always know that you're maintaining control and you have the final say on what you do with your life, and no one has the right to say, oh, you can't leave us. And anybody that does that is entering into the cult phenomenon. So going forward in your life, just have good, healthy relationships with people. Don't deal with people who are trying to manipulate you or control you. Just say, thank you very much, I can find somebody else. Also, I would suggest take a look around you. Look and see what's going on in the world and how messages are used and distorted to control people, and how the basic emotional needs of people to belong, to be one of the cool people, to be one of the good guys is used to control and manipulate people to an end which is not an end that is about them, but is about somebody's agenda. And this is what we saw in the Lord's Recovery, and you see it in the world all over. And it's very much a blessing to have that insight. And one thing about doing this YouTube channel is it's opened my eyes to that. And now I see it, I don't want to say everywhere, but I see it a lot. And honestly, to me, it's really mostly now on the political left, because the political left is a collectivist attitude anyway. Communism, socialism, the idea of cancel culture and wokeism is all a group mob thing. It's about the group being more important than the individual. Now, I realize both sides can have some nutty cultism, but the important thing to ask is, what's at operation? What do you see in operation? You might agree with some of their stated goals, but how are they really trying to achieve those goals? Are they achieving those goals by sitting down and talking and reasoning and making sense and talking about facts? Or are they doing it by demonizing somebody and trying to shame somebody into conforming? And we're seeing a lot of name calling now. You know, the Lord's Recovery said, you're an opposer, you're a rebel, you're an evil worker, you're an agent of Satan, and all this kind of stuff. Well, the name calling of racist, sexist, homophobe, fascist, all these kind of things is the same kind of thing. Rather than talking about facts, you're basically throwing mud at somebody. And we see this a lot in lieu of an actual discussion. If you don't agree with my politics, you're a bad person is basically the attitude. And so going forward, just keep an eye out for this and realize being in the Lord's Recovery and coming out of it can actually be a blessing to you, because it really frees you up to realize that that's not the way God operates. We can do better. So keep your eye out for that. Thanks again for listening. Take care.